Okay, you can see now how I've got the track in. I haven't soldered it yet, but I've got flux on it. I got the little part there that's on the curve, and then I got my 8 inches, which goes to about there. Once I get all of this, I'll take it back to over there and see how it's all fitting, and then I'll be able to do my curve on this part. Other than that, it's just soldering again. So while I'm doing this soldering, I had mentioned flux. I assume folks know that what flux does is it cleans the area that you're soldering so that the solder will flow and stick better. And if you ever try doing anything like this without flux, you'll find that it just doesn't flow well enough, and you have to really heat it up. Whereas using flux, the flux melts, you get some heat, you apply a little bit of solder, I hold it in place, make sure that it adheres. If you've ever done any plumbing work, you'll know that with copper, you'll know that first of all you have to get the copper good and clean, which is the cleaning we went through earlier, and then you have to apply flux to it, and then you just heat it and apply the solder, and wherever the flux was, the solder goes, even uphill. So in this case, because the flux is underneath and flows underneath the track because of the way these things are built, you get solder underneath the joint, so you'll find that the track is soldered to the PCB board actually in 2 areas. The bottom of the track is soldered down to it, and then on the side you have kind of a bump of solder that comes up the side and flows into the side of the rail as well. So now that that's done, that's all of them done, let me just go here and I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit more, but you can see there's a little bump of solder on the outside, which is PCB to the rail, and you can see the shiny solder there where it's come all the way through underneath, and that's what you want. So I'll zoom back out again, let it focus. You can see the solder bump isn't a heck of a lot. Okay, so maybe you can see a little bit better here. We'll tilt this up, and there's the near side. You can see what that looks like. Pretty much covers the tie, although in some instances it doesn't, but I'll paint that anyway. And then you can see there and there the shiny solder that's come underneath. Alright, so I've started to build this next section of track. What I wanted to do was put it in here how it's going to fit. And I can see it'll fit like that. And then make sure that I'm going to, if I put this in as I was thinking of, oh, it's a little bit, I'm going to have to build this straight a little bit longer because I want it to go to there. Let me double check stuff here. Yeah, it looks like that. Coming off there, I need to go to there. So if I add 2 more ties in the straight, I should be good. So we'll do that and try it. I went ahead and added a couple more to there. Now I want to get a joiner for here. And I can see that the track needs a little bit of filing in order to mate properly. So we'll do a little bit of filing on this. And we'll just keep doing this till it joins up perfectly. Yeah, that's looking good. So now I'll get joiners and we'll join it up, see how it looks. So this is interesting. I've got everything pretty much laid the way it's going to be now. And I mean, there's a little bit of flexibility, but not a lot. And I'm just looking at this, and I can see that in order to have this work properly, if I go with the current, what I have, it's going to be a little bit too high. And if I go back one more tie, it still might be. Those two ties shouldn't have been put on that I did. So I'm going to have to knock those last two ties off. So here's the track. I've got to bend it this way, and I got stuff like this. So in order to bend it, rather than use a roller, which isn't going to fit in here, I can bend it like this, just with my thumb on here. It's a little harder through here, but I can get that. So that's all I'm going to do is go back, and over the distance that it needs to bend is just bend this track so that it's approximate to the curve up to about here. Then it's going to straighten out again. So I can do little bits of bend like that. Now, if you're building curved track, if you don't have a bender, you can curve all of your track just doing it like this, and with enough pressure it'll bend. This is code 55 track, but even 100 you can do that kind of bending on. The key thing is you want enough of a bend so there's not too much stress on the track, or you risk solder joints over time. I went ahead and redid this. This track is now, I went back 3 on the curve, straightened it out, and you can see if I mean that moves a little bit, if that's there, that's looking pretty darn close. You know, with a little bit of wiggle room, that's enough. So straight wise, I've got to add, if I add 3 inches, that'll be too much, but that'll be good, then I can cut these guys. The next thing I'm going to double check is on this one, make sure it's exactly where it has to be. But basically I need to add 3 inches of straight on there, and then those guys will join up. So everything's kind of looking good. Let me double check here. Yep, that joint is proper. I got another joint here. If I can't find it, I guess it's together, right? And then I got another joint over here. That one's looking good. Got that there. That's all looking good. Now, one of the things I also need to do is make sure I got enough clearance here. So I got my tallest car here. Got lots of clearance there. I'll have to move this guy out a little. Yeah, so I got more than enough clearance all the way through there. I've already tested this. I know I have enough clearance there. So I'll go ahead now and add the extra here to go there. So we'll connect this in here. First up. And then, this is indeed too long. Just bring the camera over. So you can see how the track, whoops, how the track curls around there, comes through, comes over to here, and now comes there, where all I really need to do now is cut that, and I'll need one more tie in there, and we should be good. It'll have to come out just a little bit there, but I'm sure that'll work out. Well, it's going to work out fine. It'll just be a little bit more fiddling. Got my mock-up ready now of my reverse loop here. So It comes here off of this turnout, around here, comes along here, comes along here, and then all the way back to there. And so I've got this little guy on there just to prove that it'll work. Now there's a ton more work to do here. I can't wire it up and run anything because, as I say, it's a reverse loop, so it's got to go, it's got to be able to swap at the turnouts. But you can, and it's a little higher here because I don't have foam board on the rest of this stuff, and so we'll go along there like that, back onto the straight along there, and now it's going to derail because that turnout's set the wrong way. And there it goes. But you get the idea. Now I can see what I'm going to need to do here is I've got to cut the foam board along here, and I've got to cut a bit of foam board on the outside here to support this because this is pushed out a little bit. Okay, this is the continuation of track work. And this is continuation of track work. I've built this track along here. I had to take a day out to redo some elevation on here because it was tilted too much. Anyway. Okay, here's the foam board, and you can kind of see the pencil line here. Or if I tilt it, you can see the pencil line running along there, running along the top. So now that I've got that, I just take an X-Acto knife and cut it out freehand. This is straight along here, so I can use a straight edge, but all of this part where it's curved, I just have to freehand cut it out. So now we've mocked up the foam board in there. So if you're looking, it goes all the way from there now, around, and all the way through there. So it's all cut. A little jaggy piece. I'll do trimming on some of these corners afterwards. And you can see in there, I've got the piers in there, and piers along there. And so you can see the piers are in as well. Next step up, I'm going to take and I'm going to glue those piers in. And I have to put ties on the track. If you look at the track real close, you'll notice the difference between the one laid on the outside and the one on the inside. The outside one has all the ties on it, whereas the track around doesn't yet. Okay, pylons are now glued in. You can see them starting off over here, coming around, coming across there, and going down to the far end there. There's just enough of a lip on that guy. Trying to get my finger in there. Oh yeah, it's just going to blur anyway. In there to hold that end, and then if you look across here, you'll see that there's a bit of a gap here, and I have a pylon that's going to go right in the middle and another one there. I'm building them out of some bamboo and popsicle sticks to make them nice and skinny. Okay, continuing on building the track and everything along here, what I've now done, which is a little bit hard to see, well you can't from there, so I've taken some Woodland Scenics foam road bed and marked all the way along on this foam board where it's going to go. So all I did was to take a piece, it was a little shorter than this, but a piece like this, and just go along with a pencil here and mark on either side. So I'll be able to lay that down. You may be able to see I've got ties through here, but still have to do all the ties around there, and that'll take a little while to do. In some cases, this here is going to be right at the very edge, and yeah. But I run cars through, everything seems to fit, so we should be good with that. Next up, I'm going to use a circular level, and I'm going to use it on the curves to see if I need to get a little bit of extra support on the outside and do a little super elevation, because I don't want it to tip to the wrong side like it was down in here.